Good. Oh, wait a minute. What's that? Say no. An error occurred. All right, what's that? I think we're live. Good evening. Sorry, there's something happened there. Something technical happened. Hi, it's Lilia from Heal Scotland, and I've been joined tonight with my buddy from West Highland Herbal and Scotland's Wild Medicine, Clare Houlihan. And we're going to talk to you about August wild medicine, not July. And obviously our Heal Scotland challenge, which is diversity. So, like I was saying in the live this morning, all the clever questions have to be directed at my friend Clare, who can answer all the healing and health questions that you have about the medicine that we're going to talk about tonight. How are you doing, Mrs.?
Yeah, pretty good. 1st of August, Lunasa marks the start of the harvest season. So, yeah, unsurprisingly, that makes me a busy lady. So, yeah, and the sun's been shining most of the week. So we're finally getting a wee bit of a touch of summer.
I know today was gorgeous here, probably the warmest day. It was the first day we actually opened both doors in the salon, the back and the front. It was like it was actually warm enough. Was it like that with you?
It was, yeah. Although I've been in clinic most of the day with one of my herbal students, so we've been kind of looking longingly out of the window, and then we did manage to get some harvesting done in the garden this afternoon. Late afternoon, early evening after we finished up with patients. So yeah, it was really nice to get into the garden and make some tinctures and make the most of the harvest season.
Yeah, and I mean, we had such a phenomenal weekend last weekend up at Lynbreck, which is just like, it's just so amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, we were super lucky with the weather. I think we had one kind of rain shower, which was kind of heavy, and that was obviously my fault for leaving without my jacket. So when you go out without a jacket on in Scotland, it means it's guaranteed to rain, doesn't it? But yeah, we were so lucky with the weather, and Lynn and Sandra just have the most beautiful patch up there where they're just doing incredible work, and you can really see it in the land, just how diverse the plants are and what amazing medicine is there on the land. So it was great to see so many people turn out for the 2 days.
It was fantastic. And I think, it's always the same. Like you and I talk about this after every retreat we have and every workshop, where you just learn a little bit more about what each of us are doing. And it sinks into a deeper level. Like what they're doing is so important to what you're doing, to what I'm doing. And the symbiotic way that these amazing women work with the animals in the land is just such a joy, isn't it?
Absolutely. And yeah, it just I was kind of reflecting on the weekend and just how much it feels like you're kind of dipping into that ecosystem, and you kind of become part of this temporary ecosystem for a weekend, and you do become part of it. And as you say, we have this beautiful kind of synergistic connection where everybody's just doing their little bit to make positive things happen in the world. So that feels really inspiring, and super inspiring to see how everybody fits into that and how everybody's doing their own individual amazing work. So yeah,
absolutely. And I think I came back as per usual. I've a little bit more information from you has sunk in. And yesterday I was at the beach and with my grandchildren, and I picked up, because I knew we were launching the diversity challenge today, and I thought, my God, foraging is the way, especially right now, because it's just like you actually can't walk anywhere without wild medicine, like blowing in the wind at you. It's just incredible. And for me, medicine, it's just been like in my dreams. It's like the smell, everything. It's like, so I took some stuff home last night, and then I just went into the garden this morning and I hadn't even noticed we had elderflower in my brother's garden. and obviously tons of nettle seeds and herb
Mm-hmm.
Robert, and you're just like, oh, I mean, again, it's just I feel so superior knowing what these plants even are now, and then getting out the book and just reading, even just the little short um, sentence that you have about like how this can help you. And meadowsweet, I was like, right, well, who doesn't have some kind of digestive issue of some kind?
Yeah,
Whether it's mild reflux or a mild kind of digestive thing, or whose liver doesn't need a little bit of
absolutely.
support. It's just, and it's just kind of waving at you almost, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just right there. And as I say, it's we're in the middle of the harvest season now. So you can literally just walk outside the door and there's so much abundance right there. You don't have to go far or make too much of an effort just to get these things, fresh. And that's might be if you live rurally like the two of us do, or even in a city, or in your garden. The wild medicines kind of everywhere, so very easy to access at this time of the year.
So you talk quite naturally about harvest season. What does that
Mm.
actually mean? Because I wouldn't even have really understood what that meant, and when is it?
Yeah. So I suppose, I mean, I talk about harvest season. So traditionally, today is the 1st of August. Traditionally, in the kind of pagan wheel of the year, 1st of August, or round about the 1st of August, is Lunasa, which is it marks the start of I guess the cultivated harvest season. So more thinking about like farming and things like that. So you would be bringing in the first of the mature crops. But in terms of the foraging calendar, obviously we know that we can start harvesting some things in the middle of February. But really this time of year, this is when things are starting to, traditionally fruits are starting to ripen, seeds and grains are starting to ripen up, and you would traditionally have been gathering things in and preserving them and drying them and storing them, to get you through the winter season, to see you through until the first of the spring greens start to come through in the early spring, late winter. So yeah, that's what I mean by
Yeah,
this is a kind of celebration this time of year, is it the celebration of the first of the harvest season.
but yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, certainly living at Barmola, because suddenly there was like a glut of everything appeared, all the berries,
Yeah,
there was an absolutely, you're like, we can't eat all of this. So you 100% have to go, right, how do
yeah,
we, what do we do with this food? And I was, it was funny, I was thinking today because I was like, there's actually because obviously as a nutritionist, you're thinking about your kind of bog standard staple foods, but it's actually the same as when you're thinking about medicine. It's like, right, okay, there's all this stuff comes up at the right time in the right place, but obviously, particularly now, and so many people are suffering from autoimmune issues, we're going to need the power of meadowsweet all through the winter. So the harvesting and then the preservation, the medicine making, or whatever, however it is we're going to do. I think let's talk about that a little bit. So before you go into August medicine, what are you thinking as a herbalist? What are you thinking right now in harvest season? What's your main priority?
in terms of plants that I'm harvesting.
Well, in terms of planning ahead, I suppose.
So really kind of July and August into August. Again, depends on the year and the season and what kind of weather we've had. But I would say, in terms of what I'm harvesting at the moment, this is one of the busiest times. So a lot of plants are in flower here in the Highlands, or like I say, have started to fruit. So over the past couple of weeks, I've been making nettle seed tincture. I've been harvesting agrimony, meadowsweet, lemon balm, Californian poppy, borage, motherwort, vervain. What else? I can even look back at my list here. Wood betony. mugwort. I'm trying to find my list. St John's wort. You know,
Right. So you
literally
just
every.
list out. Is that how you actually plan ahead? You've made a list of everything.
Um, so I keep really dedicated tincture making records. Obviously, for I need to be really careful about what I'm doing and keep a record of the tinctures that I've made, and all these bottles that you see on the shelf behind me here. Everything gets written down in a book, so I'll be able to look back at last year and think, all right, okay, I was making nettle seed tincture about this time last year. But also, just from being out and about, like I'm kind of in the routine of it now. So, I'll get to March and I'll be looking out for the nettles. I'll get to April, May, and I'll be looking out for the hawthorn blossom. Every time I leave the house, I'm thinking to myself, oh, the brambles are starting to sit, the fruit's starting to go green, and I'll be waiting for things to come. I'll be looking at the meadowsweet and waiting for that to flower and waiting for it to be at its prime before it starts to set seed. Obviously I'm growing a lot of herbs in the garden, so every time I go into the garden, I'm having a look, like what's flowering, what's ready, what am I going to be harvesting, what do I need to make time to harvest over the next few weeks. So you just get into a bit of a routine of it when you've been doing it for so many years. You kind of know what to expect, and that's part of the reason why I've organised the Herbal Helper Weeks, where people can come and volunteer in the garden for particular times of the year, because I know at those times there's going to be a certain amount of harvesting to do, or there'll be certain jobs that need to be done that I need help with. So it's all fairly well planned.
Yeah, because the other thing that I find, like, I know that sometimes you're talking about the flowers, you're talking about the leaves, you're talking about the roots of the plants, and I'm like, oh my God, how can you? And also the temperature, the climate, I know that different parts of the UK things come out at different times, and I'm like, how on earth can she keep, like, how do you know what's going to happen next, especially because you make all your own medicines, so it's, but I suppose over years, then you know what to expect.
You
So
do,
let's talk about the seeds that I was saying to you. That was my huge takeaway from the weekend, was the plantain and sorrel, when it goes to seed. Basically, that's what it is, isn't it?
Sure, yeah, and obviously, at this time of year, things are starting to set seed. So plantain seeds, I mean, plantain itself is related to psyllium husk. So psyllium is a type of plantain, and the seeds of the plantain. So the husk of the psyllium is similar to the husk around the plantain seeds. So those seeds are edible, and they're obviously quite small, and a bit of a fiddle, bit of a faff to harvest. But you can obviously harvest them and just take them, sprinkle them onto salads, or put them through breads, or just take them, sprinkle them onto your breakfast or whatever, and that should help with gut health. But a lot of our seeds are also, seeds contain the kind of blueprint, the DNA of future plants, which is kind of mind blowing, really, isn't it? It's like all that stuff compressed in one
all the
tiny little.
power in that
Yeah.
tiny blows me away.
That's it. So seeds contain the potential for an entire new plant. So if you think about how kind of potent and nutritious seeds are, I mean, this brings us back to the bit about sprouting in the book as well, because when you sprout seeds, you're activating their kind of full potential, and you're harnessing those kind of enzymes and the that kind of potential for growth. So seeds obviously very nutrient dense and contain a lot of vitamins and minerals and things. So adding that into your diet again, it's going to increase gut diversity as well, because you're giving your microbes something to feed on. There's usually kind of fiber and, omega oils, fats, protein in seeds. So they're a really nutrient dense form of food. So, and I guess, we have evolved as mammals, or, whoever's eating the seeds, birds, beasties, mammals, whoever we are, these nutrient dense things are around at this time of year, so we can kind of put on that, like gain that energy to kind of get us through the winter.
Yes.
So it's a good time of year to be harvesting those and thinking about that as well.
Now, which one had the mushroom taste strongest? Tell that
Yeah.
story. That's
So this is actually the plantain flower head before it comes into flower. It's like the buds. So actually you will still find some of them around, as we did at the weekend. So it's before they flower, and before they set seed. The plantain is edible at all times of the year, but you can actually eat these buds, the flower heads, before they come into flower, and it will taste like mushrooms. And the reason for that is because plantain forms a mycelial connection with the snowy waxcap mushroom, which is a grassland species of mushroom. And basically, you can taste the mushroom, you can taste that mycelial connection through the buds of the plantain, and to a certain extent the leaves as well, but it's much more strong in the buds. And yeah, when I found that out, it completely blew my mind. I had no idea that that's why. I always knew that plantain seed heads, flower buds tasted like mushrooms, but I didn't have the understanding of as why. And it just really helped me to kind of see the whole kind of picture a bit clearer, rather than just seeing one individual plant and a plant next to it and a mushroom over there and a tree over there. It kind of helped me to understand that actually nothing can be separated, just the same as how we think about holistically, how we think about the body. We can't take one part without the other. Those things are all completely interlinked, and the fact that you can actually taste those connections, it really blew my mind.
and it actually, what blew me away was I was like, my God, I could, because I love that flavor. And I was like, I can just get that flavor now, because getting mushrooms, and particularly getting them in the wild, for me is, well, it's just not something I've spent a lot of time doing. And obviously you have to know what you're doing.
100%.
You really have to know what you're doing. There's the obvious ones, but I was like, my God, you can get that strong, delicious flavor right from there.
Yeah,
I just absolutely love that. And also love it when you can just go sprinkle it in salads, or a little bit like nettle seeds, sprinkle it in scrambled eggs and sprinkle it in bread, add it into anything. It's so versatile.
That's it. So
and easy
if
to
you are
use.
trying to increase diversity, it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's quickly then talk about August wild medicine.
Yeah, I feel like we've already talked about August wild medicine. It's like everything's flowering, so just abundance.
We'll talk about the blaeberries. They're these nutrient dense, amazing little guys.
Yeah. So in terms
I think they're August in the book, are they?
Yeah. So I've got a little copy of the book here, and what I've written about in the book for August in terms of foraging was blaeberries, heather, and herb Robert. Now, a lot of these plants, blaeberries, I definitely associated with July, August here, this part of the UK. Herb Robert, you can find it kind of at other times of the year, but again, trying to squeeze everything into months is always a bit of a challenge. And heather tends to be in flower kind of July, August time as well. So, and that's just such a quintessentially Scottish plant. So definitely something to look out for at the moment. But blaeberries in particular, again, we were talking about at the weekend because they are very common in the Central Highlands, and you can usually find some pretty good spots for foraging them as well. We do get them over here on the west, but they don't seem to be quite as common as in Central Scotland and further in southern Scotland as well. And some of the patches I think are very overgrazed by red deer and things, so you do have to pick your spots. But blaeberries as a medicine, absolute powerhouse of nutrients. So the kind of key thing to remember about the wild blaeberries, if you compare them to like a cultivated blueberry, if you bite into a wild blaeberry, they're blue, like really, really purpley blue all the way through. And as soon as you eat them, like your whole mouth, your tongue, everything goes this kind of purpley blue color. So they're loads of fun as well. And if you compare that to a cultivated blueberry, they tend to be kind of translucent, slightly clear on the inside. So you can actually see that like powerful medicine inside the middle of a wild blaeberry. And it's the blueness that is the powerhouse of antioxidants. So these compounds are called anthocyanins. So they're a specialized type of flavonoid, which are basically antioxidant compounds that have a kind of wide range of actions within the body. But the ones in blaeberry actually help to support the microvasculature. So our tiny little blood vessels are microcirculation. And that's particularly in the eyes. So they're very helpful for changes associated with diabetes, diabetic retinopathy, these kind of things. But also for other kind of circulatory changes as well. They can also help to improve blood sugar control, and they also support the immune system as well. So, you know, they're just a really great thing to be getting into diet. So, yes, go pick some blaeberries.
That I know. Well, I mean, that loch we went to at the weekend, I couldn't believe how many how many bushes were there. But also, you kind of, I think the difference between the wild ones and the supermarket bought ones is pretty dramatic, isn't it, in terms of nutrition and medicine? But also the fact that would help control blood sugar is actually like, it's almost like counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And, because it's got these wide-ranging effects on the immune system response as well, it's just, it's such an incredible medicine. So it actually, like, helps to increase white blood cell count. It contains loads of different, compounds like quercetin, resveratrol. It helps to improve collagen function. Anything to the eye, like it improves oxygenation to the eye, blood delivery to the eyes, cataracts, glaucoma, all these conditions it can be supportive in. And it also helps to reduce the allergic response, because we know that that's connected to immune system function as well. So yeah, it's really just a total powerhouse of a plant.
Fantastic. And I think for people that are listening, all of this information, it's not a plug, it's actually just the truth. It's all in the book. And, for me, I'm like, let's go back, because I can never remember all the stuff that you tell me, but just going back and knowing that it's there, especially, I think, really understanding that the planet's kind of going like, here you go, here's all the stuff you need at the time when you need it. So it's like, right, okay, what is actually in there? Somebody's asking, Melissa's asking, do you have any suggestions on treating an embedded UTI? My daughter said countless antibiotics.
That's probably a consultation. If it's not, if it's something that's not resolving, then it's probably a bigger conversation. I mean, there are things that can help with treating urinary tract infections. If it's recurring, then there's probably something underlying that needs addressed. So that might be, it might be a number of different things. But for simple urinary tract infections, in terms of things that you can easily get hold of, thyme is fantastic, and garlic is a really fantastic wide-ranging antimicrobial as well. Both of these have affinity with the urinary tracts as well. Something that you might be able to get a hold of or that you might grow in your garden is calendula. That has, again, it's a kind of pelvic tonic, and it helps with a variety of different types of bacterial viruses and fungal infections as well. So, those are some things you could probably try, but it might be a wider, it might
I
need
would
some.
also be wondering how old she is.
I mean, that's what I mean.
There's,
how old are you?
It is a wider
It's a
conversation.
wider conversation, really. But things that you can just try are there. But that leads me nicely on to actually talking about heather, because heather does also have an affinity with the urinary tract, and it can be used for treating urinary tract infections. So, that's another plant that you could try that's actually harvestable now, and is quite common throughout Scotland. Obviously, it enjoys heaths and peaty, moors and that kind of situation. So that's something else that you could try, because it does have an affinity with the urinary tract. So hopefully that's answered your question.
That can be helpful. And if you need any more advice, Melissa, just DM. What I often use it's usually with adults, is turps. And we can have very, very quick results with that. But as I say, you would have to have a bit of a wider conversation to actually suggest things like that. So but obviously what's Clare's saying, try these things and you can see how if it has an effect. And the other thing is, a lot of the time when stuff that we would recommend, you're looking at trying it for a few weeks to a few months before you would. And I think that's, with allopathic medicine, you're thinking, it should get better in 3 to 5 days, and sometimes you're looking at a bit of a longer rebalancing act, basically. So to give very accurate information, you would definitely need more feedback from you. Anyway, so heather, I think, is so common and it's just fantastic. So how would people use that? So in terms of because UTIs are so common now, not just in younger people, but obviously in our elderly, is a massive problem, isn't it? Because it can lead to all sorts of issues. So say we've got some older people now, what would be the best way to utilize heather for them?
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. And actually, just to go back to that point about kind of UTIs in older people, it can often be it can present in a kind of unpredictable way with older people, so it can actually cause almost dementia-like symptoms. So sometimes urinary tract infections can be missed in older people because it's more of the kind of emotional or kind of mental changes that will be visible first. So that's one to look out for if you're if you have older people in your life that suddenly start having a personality change. It's always worth getting that checked. But really, my kind of preferred way to treat urinary tract infections, if it's just a simple, straightforward UTI, would be a strong herbal tea. So fluids, getting as much fluids through the kidneys and flushing out the bacteria. UTIs obviously can be caused by any kind of organism, but often they're bacterial, sometimes they're fungal. But anything to flush out those invading organisms is going to be helpful. And if you can get some anti-infective herbs into those fluids, then that's a really good way to treat. So heather, you can just make a straightforward herbal infusion or tea with heather. So just picking a bunch and putting it in a teapot, covering it with boiling water, leaving it to infuse for 5 to 10 minutes. And then I just get people to take herbs, like just no other fluids really, unless they're taking cranberry, like unsweetened cranberry juice or something like that. But just be drinking any water that you're taking, make sure there's herbs in it, basically. So you can drink your herbal tea hot, you can drink it cold, you can drink it with a little bit of raw honey in it, whatever, just get that fluid into you. So that's really, really key. So that's how I would say to take the heather. Heather also has mild kind of sedative properties as well, so it can be helpful for treating restlessness or insomnia. It's a lovely relaxant, and sometimes just when people have got an infection, just getting them to sit down and rest properly is really important as well, especially if there's any chance that that might look like it's going towards the kidneys. Kidneys need a lot of rest. And if you do feel like you have a kidney infection, then that is actually an antibiotic situation. We don't want to be treating that with herbs, just because kidney damage is something that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's lovely about teas, and I think that, like, we're always, it's on about hydration and, drinking so much water, but obviously in the winter when it's cold, you don't want to drink cold water. And it's a really good way to keep yourself hydrated.
Absolutely.
So then if you would dry the heather so that you've got, because I think it's really important and certainly for somebody like me, where it's December and you're like, oh, I never foraged or dried anything or kept anything. Do you know what I mean? It's like now you've got to go harvest the season, get it all in, get the flowers dried, get all the teas. And I know, like Sandra, you've really inspired her to the extent and gave you a tea bag at the weekend. Sandra's like, horrified.
It's so great after working with on the land and with Lynn and Sandra for several years now. It's great to go back and just see these massive jars of hand dried herbal teas that they've been making, and I just think, wow, that's so inspiring that, like, the work that I've done with them has really led to such a change in how they're treating the land.
100%.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the heather,
and actually, I think a tea making course, would be, because it's like you're making medicine, but it's almost like I was saying to you about, when you did the seaweed with me, when I actually saw you cooking with the seaweed and we started making things, I was like, right. So that learning process just really accelerated because we actually did it. So I think the whole tea thing for me, that's definitely something. And the vinegars was another thing, like with it, for the dressings. You're just like, how easy is that? Get vinegar and put these magical medicines into the vinegar. It's an absolute no-brainer.
I think it's just getting started a lot of the time, isn't it? It's having the confidence to know that what you're doing is going to work. And I have to say, not every single thing that I make is perfect. Like sometimes I have what I call fermental failures, so like when I'm fermenting something and it'll explode, or like, it'll go moldy on the top. And I've been through a lot of times like that where things haven't quite worked, or in my head, I'm like, oh, this is going to be an amazing blend and I'm going to mix this with that and it's going to be delicious. And then you taste it and you're like, that is not what I was imagining, big bottles of stuff. You're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? Clean the bathroom, So yeah, I would just encourage people to play, like find the flavors that you like and just throw things in jars and throw some vinegar over the top, or dry it and put it into a tea blend. And you never know. Life is full of surprises.
Well, that's the thing, wasn't it? It was nice at the weekend, and I know that happens every time we get together with people. Somebody will come up with an idea, and you're like, oh, that's a cool idea. So it's like, and there is the alchemy, obviously, and the medicinal properties, but there's also just the flavors. It tastes so bloody good. Like, your tip about putting, I think it was bog myrtle into the barbecue, into the coals.
Yeah.
So that flavor comes through. I mean, I just love that idea. I think it's just, these are the kind of things, like with the seaweed, where just suddenly there's a flavor in there. You just can't really, put your finger on it, but it's just like, God, that tastes so good.
Yeah,
so there is the medicinal thing as well, but there's also just the the delicious flavors that you can get.
For sure. And I think the more and more you get into foraging, the more you're like, oh yeah, that tastes like spruce tips. You're like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
does spruce tips taste like? They just taste like spruce tips. There's nothing else quite like
Uh-huh.
them, you know. And oh, what does that taste like? Oh, it tastes like pepper dulse. There's nothing else that tastes quite like pepper
Yes,
dulse, you know. So you
I
get to
know,
know these things, and
exactly.
you're like, okay, yeah, it's kind of a bit like this, or it's a bit like that, but you really get to know those like delicious flavors. And as you say, like going back to kind of commercial supermarket food after that, you're a bit like, it's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, well, it makes, it always makes you realize how far away from the foraging that we've kind of come. And even when you think you're eating healthily, a lot of the food just isn't as alive and delicious. So anyway, on our retreat, obviously, if people that are listening that have been in the retreat, they know the food is a huge part of it for us, and as of the medicine making, and obviously from my side of it, the connection to nature, not just the plants. Obviously, you do all the intuitive stuff with the plants as well, because it's literally about information interacting with information. And that's obviously when I go into the five elements and how the body interacts with that, and the plants, and the incredible the senses, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, the feelings, and then obviously interacting with each other. Oh, Vicky's there. She's saying, I like burning sage and rosemary in the hot coals and tinfoil with a wee bit of water and holes in it. Ah, lovely. And it helps with the
Great.
midges. Great.
That's a great tip.
And Bob
Absolutely great.
Myrtle is so Harry Potter somehow. Fantastic. Yeah, all these different things that we can do with herbs, and we're just learning and exploring. It's just absolutely fantastic. And I think there's nobody that doesn't love eating. And coming in our retreat, eating's a big part because it is medicinal in nature. You're going to feel better. And obviously the great thing about the Highland Base Camp is everybody has their own room, their own toilet and shower. It's all en suite. So if your digestive system's taking a wee bit of a clean out or a wee bit of a clear, you've got privacy, which is really nice. And obviously we've got that white sandy beach right there. Just obviously the Morven coastline that is just absolutely pristine and beautiful. So yeah, if you want to join us, we've still got a few places left. Do you want to talk a little bit about the best way to get to Loch Allen, where our late autumn retreat is? Because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, it is obviously very remote, which is part of the charm and part of the appeal of coming out here, because we are off the kind of beaten track, and it's not. Yeah, it's the road less travelled. So the best way is obviously if you have your own vehicle, or if you can lift share with somebody else that's coming. But the retreat starts on a Thursday. You can get a bus from Fort William that will get you to Loch Allen for pretty much exactly the right time for the retreat starting on the Thursday afternoon. Or you can get from if you are coming from Oban, you can get a ferry to the Isle of Mull, and then a bus from Craigmuir to Fishnish, and another ferry. So that's the Magical Mystery Tour of ferries, which you've done sometimes, Lilia, getting here. The two ferries over on Mull. So if you wanted to make a full week of it, even, you could go to Mull and do a little bit of travelling around Mull before the retreat, or go back that way and do a bit of travelling around Mull afterwards. But yeah, there are obviously a couple of options there for public transport, but probably having the flexibility of a car or a lift share, is the
A
easy.
carpool. How far would it take from Glasgow? So most people come from the central bit, from Glasgow or Edinburgh. How long would it take driving?
It's about 3.5 hours from Glasgow, about 4 from Edinburgh, sometimes a
It's
bit
not that
longer
bad,
depending on
really.
traffic. It's not the ends of the earth. But yeah, as I say, you know, it is rural, it is remote, but that's part of the appeal because you're really off the beaten track.
Absolutely, because and that's why it's so pristine and untouched. And obviously with your medicine garden there, and then people will actually learn hands-on what plants they resonate with and how to turn that into a medicine and how to preserve things so that they have that energy and that frequency over the winter and beyond.
That's right.
What's
Yeah.
Vicky saying? It's great fun. It's great fun getting there from Tane.
Vicky's a pro now. She's great. Absolute professional at getting here from 10. Yeah, maybe I should just ask Vicky to tell everybody how to get here because she's much better.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. That's covering. So we've got diversity covered. We've got August and a bit of July and probably a little bit. What's after August? September. My God, I can't believe we're at this time of the year already.
Oh, it's
and
terrifying.
Our first sunny, hot day. Absolutely beautiful today.
I'll take more of that. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. It's just glorious. I absolutely love it. Okay, Hunt. Well, listen, thank you so much, as always, for your phenomenal wisdom around the plants. And guys, get out, get your diversity challenge going. What can you add in to your meal? Even just a few leaves, a few seeds, a few flavors, and let us know. And we will see you in our retreat at the end of October. Awesome.
Fantastic.
All right. Happy harvesting.
Foraging, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.